Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, March the 12th, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, which means that we try to do our best research to make sure we are using the most reputable sites with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, whatever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We probably address the facts. At the same time, guys, there may be a little bit of language there, but we try to keep it clean most of the time. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too young for viewers of a certain age. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So today's word, not to pull a Pee Wee Herman here, but today's words, kids, is recession. Can you say it? It's our secret word. Well, not really a secret because, let's be honest, the way things are going now, we are headed toward a recession.
We begin tonight with the stock market plunging after President Trump said he would not rule out the possibility of a recession. The uncertainty rattling investors, rattling Americans from Wall Street to Main Street, already on edge over the president's on-again, off-again tariffs with Mexico, Canada, and China, with other countries on his tariff list beginning April 2nd. Today, the Dow plunging nearly 900 points, down more than 2% today. The Dow now down 4% since President Trump was elected. The tech-heavy NASDAQ index falling 4% just today, its worst one-day plunge in nearly 3 years now, losing about $1 trillion in value. The president has said we're in a period of transition and that it, quote, takes a little time. He has warned his moves could bring temporary disruption. It certainly has brought confusion and now real concern on Wall Street. ABC's chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce leading us off tonight.
President Trump today out of sight as his words sent the stock market into free fall. Wall Street suffering its worst day of the year, the Dow closing nearly 900 points down after the president refused to rule out that the U.S. could be heading into a recession.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us.
His team sent a different message. The Commerce Secretary insisting no way is a recession on the horizon.
Should Americans brace for a recession?
Absolutely not. There's going to be no recession in America.
But just hours later, when asked again, that's not what the president said.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate. Who knows?
It comes as the president has launched a trade war with our closest trading partners, Mexico and Canada, imposing stiff tariffs and threatening more to come. Economists warn American companies will pay those tariffs and pass the costs onto consumers by raising prices.
If the U.S. imposes tariffs to the degree that the president has been talking about and maintains them for more than a few months, I think a recession will be unavoidable.
Wednesday, Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum coming into the country are set to go into effect, which could mean that by Memorial Day, Americans will be paying more for everything from washing machines and toasters to canned goods and cars. It comes after weeks of whiplash, Trump announcing tariffs, then pausing them, then threatening even more.
The president's been talking about tariffs. They're on again, they're off again. It's unclear which countries, which products, which companies for how long. That's something that businesses just can't grapple with.
We're hearing it from small business owners like Brian Boggs, who makes custom furniture in Asheville, North Carolina.
You know, we're all used to uncertainty, but this is a mess.
And tonight, the roller coaster ride isn't over. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, making it clear that in this trade war, he's ready to match Trump blow for blow.
We didn't ask for this fight, but Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
Now, again, no comment from the president tonight. Last week, Trump, who famously watches the markets, claimed he isn't even paying attention to Wall Street. One person likely with an eye on stocks, though, Elon Musk. Tesla stock down over 41% so far this year, over 14% just today. Asked tonight if getting into government was worth the backlash to his business, Musk saying, quote, "It's tough sledding, but I think we're doing the right thing here." David.
Oh, where do I begin with Musk? I'll get to him in a moment, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the perfect storm of Recession 2.0. Trump does not understand tariffs. I hate to break it to you, he doesn't. He doesn't understand how tariffs works. He believes that people have told him that if you introduce tariffs, you will bring back manufacturing, and you'll bring back manufacturing to once a country that was a big exporter is now currently an importer. For all those people that don't know, about a good 80% of our stuff that you actually get comes from overseas. Your fruits and vegetables, Mexico. Your oil, Canada. And you want to have a tariff war with the two biggest things, fruits, vegetables, and avocados, and oil that you're importing from Canada into the U.S., and you want to start a fight. And then, oh, well, we're going to start tariffs, but then we're not. But we're going to start them, but we're not. And the stock market is kind of like your alcoholic uncle at the party just going, where's the next bottle? I mean, we're already going to be drunk and crashing, but we might as well be good lit up on the way down. So, again, how, and I say this all the time because it always kills me when people go, well, Trump's a successful businessman. No, he's not. He is the only man, and I will always bring this up whenever I talk to somebody about Trump. How can you support a successful con man? A successful con man that is now a convict because he is indicted and was found guilty on federal charges. You do understand this man bankrupted a casino. Literally the foolproof plan of making money in America, and this pendejo bankrupted it. And so what's doing next? He's running America like a business that he knows all too well. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with Trump. You cannot put the United States of America in bankruptcy court, which he is all too familiar with. Because these tariffs, along with going against Mexico and Canada, who are doing reciprocal tariffs against us, at the same time, guys, not being honest with himself. Are we headed to recession? We're going through a transitional period. This isn't a gender change operation. That's transitional. This is you lying to yourself that your policies and your tariffs are literally going to run Americans to the ground. Because again, for all those that are just unsure, tariffs are not paid by the actual nations or countries themselves. They are paid by the consumers. Because God forbid the business owners and suppliers are going to take a hit in paying more tariffs. They're going to pass that savings on to you. And so, yes, from electronics to cars, we're already seeing that in cars. I don't know if you guys have seen the Fox News where they try to interview one guy at a Dodge dealership, and the guy goes, well, these 80K trucks have now become 100K trucks. And it's amazing how quickly that Fox News person had to pivot and say, well, how many people are driving Dodges in Iraq right now? How many people are driving Dodges overseas right now? Because Dodge is not successful. I'm like, oh, Fox News, you joke of an entertainment network because you're not a news network. You never have been. And I still mad Dominion for not taking you out of court because they really should have. But the thing is, guys, Trump has no idea what he's doing. And at the same time, has no remorse. It's not that he's stupid. He is stupid, truly dumb. But at the same time, his policies, again, seem to echo what he did back in 2016. Giving tax cuts, talking about tariffs talking about putting tariffs on China, talking about putting on tariffs. It was China, putting tariffs on China halfway through his first presidency. This is all 2016, ladies and gentlemen. This is just history repeating itself. Except now, unfortunately, a good majority of the country decided to vote for this idiot, and we're all stuck around for the find out part. But here's the thing about Trump. He's not completely an idiot. He's compassionate sometimes, especially about all the workers that he let go. Mostly.
Education, sir. Would you
describe for us is this meeting your vision by cutting about half the workforce, and what responsibility do you feel to the civil servants who have now lost their jobs? Many of them worked at the Department of Education during their first term.
Sure, I do. I feel very badly, but many of them don't work at all. Many of them never showed up to work. Many of them never showed up to work, Kelly, and unfortunately, and that's not good. And when we cut, we go, and that's what I had a number of meetings with a lot of people over the last couple of months. When we cut, we want to cut, but we want to cut the people that aren't working or not doing a good job. We're keeping the best people, and Linda McMahon is a real professional, actually a very sophisticated business.
Well, we're going to cut it right there just because it goes into Linda McMahon and the fact that she has just basically been brought in to kill the Department of Education. But I want to get back to what he said. He says he feels bad, but a lot of people that actually lost their jobs weren't doing their jobs or weren't showing up. And I'm like, oh, really? This is coming off the fact that you basically went off of Elon Musk and his dumbass Dodge group saying that jobs need to be cut across the board, all government jobs. But supposedly you somehow met months ago and had meetings with departments over this and saying that, oh, well, these people just need to go. Really? Which people? Because we've seen mass layoffs. We have seen complete mass layoffs with the EPA, with the FBI, with USAID. I mean, go down the list. A lot of people in the government have lost their jobs, which, we always just said the old saying was, if you got a government job, at least you got a secure job. That's not the case anymore. But the fact that he has little to no remorse over it and then tries to give a BS excuse over it screams volumes about this man. It really does. But even more so, going to Linda McMahon, because yes, she has been confirmed as the Secretary of Education to be over that Department of Education. But imagine basically being assigned to a department that is highly important to the nation, and your only job is to dismantle it. Crazy, right? And yet, well, because the Republicans have majorities in the House and the Senate, confirmations were going to go easy, as well as bills do, since the fact that the bill they're trying to push through has now passed the House and is moving to the Senate. And I said, Democrats, and I say this, Democrats can try to do everything that they can, but the thing is, if all Republicans are on board, it'll sail right through. Like I said, Republicans have a majority in the Senate, they have a majority in the House. They have the presidential administration. It's 2016 all over again. So Democrats can try, but I said this about the Democrats because I'm going to get to, before I get to the next part, talking about the Department of Education. Unfortunately, the censure to Mr. Representative Al Green of Texas, that 6 Democrats voted for his censure, and that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was too concerned about the decorum during the State of the Union. And Democrats, I'm going to just lay into y'all for a second. How can you be so spineless and worried about decorum and how you look when during that State of the Union, y'all should not have been there? If you really want to show that you don't respect this president, if you show that you're not with this, why are you sitting in a room for nearly 2.5 hours listening to this bumbling idiot? I know if that dude is speaking at the State of the Union, and I did not care for him, nor did I want to be there, I'd leave. I wouldn't even leave. I wouldn't show up. And that's what the Democrats should have done. All the Democrats should have done at that point during the State Union address is simply not be there. Let one side be empty and let one side be full. Let Trump have his echo chamber, because there's no need, because anything that you do there is, I'm not saying of little or no insignificance, but at the same time, it is a little bit too little too late. Because Democrats, and again, we can go down the blame game. We can go down the DNC for not talking to Biden at the beginning of last year and saying, hey, maybe you need to step down if this is how you're feeling. If you're not able to handle a secondary run, maybe you should step down and should have gave your Madam Vice President longer to run instead of giving her 6 months. Just saying. We can go down the list and sit there and say, hey, Democrats didn't do enough. You guys didn't do enough, didn't speak enough, did not point out the failures of Donald Trump. Instead, just saying, you gave warnings. And let's be honest, all Donald Trump did was speak to the idiots. Trump loves the ill-educated. He loves the slow. He loves the people that rank last in math and education and comprehension. Why? Because he speaks their language. You want lower grocery bill prices? I'm going to do that. You want the cost of eggs down? I can do that. I will end the war in Ukraine on day one. He spoke all this mess. None of his promises kept. Again, how do you get duped twice? Even more so, Democrats, you guys should have stood together instead of talking about, well, we had to have a talk with some of our freshmen and congressmen, and that's not the way we do things. We are held to a higher standard. I'm sorry, it's 2025. Bump the higher standard when the other side is being dirty and getting away with it, but you feel this moral ambiguity of holding it above it all. I'm sorry. If Michelle Obama did not go to this man's inauguration, then that speaks volumes about how America should act. That is all I'm saying. But moving right along, Department of Education. Remember we sat there and said that Trump's going to sign an executive order? Well, he changed his mind again.
President Trump is not signing an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education today. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt calls reports that Trump was expected to sign the order today, quote, fake news. ABC's Alex Perchet joins me for more on that. Alex, what's the latest?
Hey, Diane. So we've seen what the White House press secretary has said, calling this fake news about the executive order being signed today. But behind the scenes, multiple sources are telling ABC that the White House decided to pull this signing specifically because there was concern amongst top administrative officials about the blowback that the order would receive, especially with what's been deemed a lack of messaging in place ahead of its timing. And one of the things that was of specific concern is answering questions about how this executive order would impact the school lunch program. And when you think about the Department of Education, one of its chief functions, I mean, billions of dollars go towards servicing students that are low income, and then also students with disabilities. And so, there was a pivotal question here about how that would either be absorbed by other agencies or how state and local school districts would be able to fill in the gaps there.
And Alex, regardless of whether he's planning to sign an order in the coming days, President Trump has repeatedly called for the Department of Education to be dissolved. So what's the strategy here?
Well, it's interesting, Diane, because so he has, but as we know, even if he signs this executive order, and even if Linda McMahon, the Department of Education secretary, wants to follow through, in order to dissolve this agency, he needs an act of Congress, and they need 60 votes. They need Democrats to be on board with this. And frankly, there is no Democratic support that we're aware of right now to dissolve the Department of Education. But what the EO, as we've been briefed on, advises Linda McMahon to do is to roll back as much as she can by law. And so whenever you look at that, maybe it becomes a piecemeal function of dismantling parts of the agency. Keep in mind, it's not just those billions of dollars that go towards low income and also students with disabilities. The Department of Education also oversees a $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. It also oversees FAFSA.
All right, ABC's Alex Perchet.
So let's cover that for like 1 second. To reiterate this, the president does not have the power to abolish or shut down the Department of Education. It is a congressional vote. It takes 2/3 of the vote, which I've been saying this entire time. Democrats, you're going to have to be on board in order for the Department of Education to be dismantled. That is true. Now, what Linda McMahon, what secretary, I refuse to call her Secretary of Education. I'm just going to call her Linda McMahon. But what McMahon has been informed to do, what most Republicans do when they want something. Starve it of funding, roll back jobs, take away everything possible from it to where it eventually starves itself out. Once it starves itself out and it's on its last legs, then Republicans will mention something along the lines of privatization, which means that one of its rich friends wants to take over and get access to those funds or debt and go after American citizens. In this case, the Department of Education, yes, they can try, but in the words of Hamilton, you don't have the votes unless, as they said, some Democrats actually jumped on and actually joined in. Now, again, is it possible? I mean, you had 6 Democrats vote to censor one of their own, while the rest of the party is looking at them like, really? So again, I'm not putting it past them. I'm just saying it's possible, but it's a scary thought that it is possible is what I'm getting at. At the same time, another reason why they didn't want to dismantle the Department of Education, for all those that have student loans, think about this. Majority of student loans are actually handled by the Department of Education. What would happen to those student loans if the Department of Education was no longer a viable entity? That means whoever is holding those loans, it has to go somewhere. At the same time, there could be lawsuits. Folks could dispute their student loans if their original loan processor was no longer available. And they could say, I know a lot of people going, well, you know, they could just turn around and give those loans to somebody else. You could, but if we're going the ways of the credit report and the Fair Credit Report Act, you have to show a lot of responsibility. And again, a lot of people don't know this, and trust me, that will come up, that in the event that the Department of Education ever goes bye-bye, they will turn around and sit there and say, oh, well, my student loans should go bye-bye too, since the department that issued them is no longer there. Trust me, that's lawsuits waiting to happen. It's a great time to be a lawyer, honestly. But yes, the Department of Education serves a lot more than just ensuring that every citizen, every child has a decent education. Rural schools depend on federal funding. Kids with special needs or special circumstances depend on the fact that they get allocation and get their special needs met, but still get a quality education. You cannot, and I say above all else, you cannot allow education to go back to the states. Trump wants that because Project 2025 wants that, because the guy who is the architect of that Project 2025 is now the director of the OMB. So again, it is amazing to me how Trump does not know about Project 2025, and yet the actual architect is now one of the people that answer to him. But that's what they want to do with the Department of Education. They want that to go back to the states. And I've said it once, and I'll say it again for all those that may have not heard me the first time. If you are in a blue state and your education goes back to the states and you're in a blue state, you're probably fine. If you're in a red state, because you ain't noticed, most red states are almost either at the bottom or dead last in education in the U.S. If you're in a red state, you're probably screwed. Just saying. But the reason why we're talking about the Department of Education, because like we said, Linda McMahon and them are doing the best they can. Even though they can't officially abolish the entire entity, they're doing what they do best. Cut jobs for no reason.
This morning, a drastic change to the Department of Education. The Trump administration planning to cut the staff of the agency in half. DOE workers ordered to stay home today, with some 1,300 career employees expected to be terminated. The new education secretary says the president's ultimate goal is to shut down the agency, but that would require an act of Congress.
What we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat.
The Department of Education says it serves over 50 million students across the country. Its staff working on programs from student loans to anti-discrimination laws and campus safety. The head of the advocacy group, the National Education Association, saying, quote, the real victims will be our most vulnerable students. It comes as President Trump made a show of support for.
So let me stop right there because it kind of goes into the next story that I just want to keep for myself on that. But yes, eliminating anywhere from 1,300 to 3,000 jobs. And you don't think for 1 second that's not going to affect students. It is going to affect students whole freaking hardly. And again, they call it, and I love how they sit there and say, they call it bloating. It's bloated jobs. Ever notice that whenever Republicans cut something, it's bloated or it's useless jobs or people getting paid for doing nothing? And it's like, you want to cut the most efficient, integral, and let's be honest, critical jobs that we need, because you did this to the IRS. You cut the IRS jobs down after the IRS was given $80 million and additional personnel. Because anybody that's ever dealt with the IRS has dealt with hold times, have dealt with callbacks, keep away or tag as far as trying to get an IRS agent on the phone, and nobody wants to go through auditing. And yet they starved the IRS because, ladies and gentlemen, they wanted to privatize the IRS. They honestly wanted to get rid of it. So again, guys, They're doing the same thing to the Department of Education. That's exactly what they're doing. And even now, the only ones that are really going to be affected from this are the students and those that carry student loans and those students of special needs and those students that are not in a metropolitan area. They will all suffer now because the help that they need has less personnel. And trust me, if they keep going with it, we'll have less resources. But hey, keep telling me that we're winning with the Red Hats, who, again, if you're in a red state, for most times in math and education, including math, science, and reading, you're either at the bottom, either near the middle of the bottom, or you're dead last. But Southwest, because, for some odd reason, decided that for most business decisions are pretty stupid or trying to save money. But if you fly Southwest and you love their bags fly free, yeah, might want to reconsider another airline.
And months after ditching its open seating policy, Southwest Airlines is ending its free checked baggage perk. The airline says starting in May, it will charge for the first and second checked bag. Transportation reporter Sam Sweeney has more on that. Sam, why is Southwest doing this now?
Well, it all comes down to money and new leadership. Southwest was partially influenced by a $1.9 billion activist investor last year who brought in new board members and threatened to get rid of the CEO if they didn't change things around. Southwest has been lagging in recent years. For 60 years, it was their hallmark that bags fly free, open seating. But the airline industry has changed, and Southwest really hasn't kept up with it. A lot of customers are choosing the premium airlines because they want that first-class seating or bigger seating, and Southwest has been falling behind on that. So they are making these changes. Wall Street was saying that it was money left on the table by not charging for these bags. So we'll have to see why and how it will work out. A lot of people choose Southwest because of the bag policy, and we'll see if they'll now switch to other airlines. But Southwest believes it is going to make more money, and it is going to help them develop in the future. This will start taking place after May 28th, so tickets purchased after May 28th. But if you have the Southwest credit card or you are a top-tier customer, you will be exempt from these new charges.
So what's crazy about this is Southwest, really? That's how you bring customers back? Because your big thing was bags fly free or optimal seating. Now, I am not the biggest flyer. Matter of fact, I hate flying. Reason being because the seats are always small. They try to cram as many seats as they can in there. And again, I just don't like flying. I'd rather, drive or take alternate transportation, or still hope to God we might get a light rail system that's before the turn of the next century in this country. But that's neither here nor there. But people like Southwest because you had optional seating anywhere in the plane. You had your bags fly free because, let's be honest, you're already paying a grip for airlines, whether it's direct flights or connecting flights. People got to travel. You got to be somewhere tomorrow. I get it. I understand it. It makes sense. Even though I don't understand why we have to be in the air all the doggone time. But again, I understand. That being said, Southwest, it always kills me how smart people always want to turn around and take a company and go, you know what? Maybe if we do this, that, it'll all work out. And you want to remove the greatest advertisement that you guys have, bags fly free. People come there because they don't want to pay extra for bags. We know Frontier, Delta, American Airlines, they all charge bag fees. And at the same time, you go to the one that does it because you'll still get there. You've got to save money. So what does that mean? Will Americans pay it? Eventually, yes. Will I think Southwest take a hit? Yeah, because now it's like, okay, well, unless I'm a card carry member, which again is probably going to be like maybe 20 to 25%. At the same time, there's probably going to be those that are, considered the more elite clientele, which means they're spending more money. Those people are exempt. And again, once you do that, from a business model standpoint, once you alienate your client base, it either means that you're going to be lagging for a long time, or you're going to reverse your decision as quickly as possible, or like most of these airlines, you're going to get bought out and do a merger. All I can sit there and say is, for all y'all guys, I know we joke about Spirit Airlines all the time, but if you really think about it, Spirit ain't never changed up. It might be the backwoods of the airlines, but hey, they never changed their stripes. I'm just saying. Good luck to you, Southwest. We're pretty sure you're going to change your mind. We're pretty sure you're going to change your mind in about 6 months. Move right along, guys. Hazing. I know it's 2025, and we're still finding hazing victims. And as a person that's a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, it hurts my soul because I never want to see brothers get hurt just for wanting to join a fraternity.
An alleged campus hazing death. 3 people have been charged in connection with the death last month of a Southern University and A&M college student. Our Whit Johnson joins us with more. Good morning, Whit.
Michael, good morning to you. Authorities were first alerted to this case when a group of men dropped off an unresponsive Caleb Wilson at the hospital. The men claimed Wilson collapsed while playing basketball, but police say that story was not true, and now 3 suspects are in custody, accused of a hazing ritual that turned deadly.
This morning, 2 more arrests in connection with the alleged hazing death of Southern University student Caleb Wilson. 28-year-old Isaiah Smith is facing 1 count of criminal hazing. Smith was allegedly serving as the Dean of Pledges for the fraternity Omega Psi Phi. Kyle Thurman also taken into custody on criminal hazing charges, in addition to Caleb McCrae, who turned himself in last week.
Detectives have interviewed over a dozen people and executed multiple search warrants to gather as much information as possible.
According to the arrest affidavit, the vehicle that dropped off Wilson at the hospital was registered to Smith, and Smith was seen on surveillance video removing an unresponsive Wilson from his vehicle. Earlier that night, police say Wilson and 8 other pledges arrived at this warehouse where they changed into gray sweatsuits and stood in a line and were each punched 4 times with boxing gloves by at least 3 individuals, now identified by police as Smith, Thurman, and McCrae. Police say Wilson collapsed to the floor, becoming unresponsive, and a pair of black boxing gloves later discovered at the scene.
Caleb Wilson died as the direct result of a hazing incident where he was punched in the chest multiple times.
Wilson was a mechanical engineering student at the historically black university and avid member of the school band called Human Jukebox. At a recent vigil, Wilson's grieving father, Corey, recalling his son's passion for music.
Thank you all, the Human Jukebox. This is Caleb's life. He really loved the jukebox.
And suspect Caleb McCrae is facing the most serious charges, criminal hazing and manslaughter. His attorney says he maintains his client's innocence and is urging the public to withhold rushing to judgment. Southern University called the death of Caleb Wilson a tremendous loss. A memorial is planned for Friday, guys.
No matter how you cut the mustard on this, hazing, and again, and this is coming from a guy, this is actually coming from, again, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Love it. Love the fact that I was able to, join in an esteemed fraternity with a deep history and individuals that have changed the way in our course and really just been everything great. But the thing about it is though, because I know when I was going through my process, hazing was a big thing. They're like, we don't do hazing, and there's a reason why you don't do hazing, because death happens. Or injuries happen. Charters get disbanded, people get banned, folks go to jail, only because stupid, and forgive me for this, stupid shit. And again, I'm going to say this very carefully, right? There is nothing out there that, and I get it. You see the Divine Nine, you see the Greek letters, you see the Greek life, and you say you want that. Okay, cool. But no amount of hazing is worth those letters, those colors. No amount of hazing. And at the same time, I am thankful that my fraternity did not do that. My fraternity is like, we don't do hazing, and we never will. And they were very stringent upon that, as they should, because whenever it comes to hazing, just like that, being tied up, and guy with boxing gloves punched at your chest. As a boxing fan and a person that studies boxing and studies how it impacts the body, punching somebody in the chest can stop a heart. You can you can stop somebody's heart. You can bruise the breastbone, you can bruise the rib cage, which could puncture a lung, could puncture the heart, your spleen, all various organs, all from a punch to the chest. The impact could be different. And putting a boxing glove on, let me tell you something. Putting a boxing glove on does not dull the power someone can have if they, if they have a little muscle or they have a little technique. The boxing glove doesn't soften the blow. At the same time, it's not worth it, ladies and gentlemen. If you're sitting there telling me that I gotta have four guys, supposedly big brothers, punch me in the chest as a way to prove that I want to belong to a fraternity, bump that. I will walk out the same. No, it's just, to me, it's like a gang initiation. When I understood where most gangs are like, if you want to be in the gang, we gotta jump you in. Okay, so all of y'all get to beat up on me for a certain amount of time, and then all of a sudden I'm in the gang? No, nah. Mm-mm. Or if I'm in a gang and I want to leave the gang, I am being told, hey man, we jumped you in, we got to jump you out. So you got to beat me down a second time in order for me to not be affiliated with y'all? Now, I understand I'm using hazing and gang initiations, but it's the same thing. It's like with hazing, I do not understand why you need to haze. I understand that you're trying to ensure that the people that you're pledging or that you're screening to make sure to see if they are the material of the fraternity or sorority that you are protecting. Because yes, those sororities, those fraternity and sororities should bring the people that serve the purpose or meet the purpose of what those fraternities and sororities stand for. Absolutely. But not to the point to where you're going to hurt or kill a human being. And I'm sorry, I have no love lost for those three guys, because those three guys cost the life of someone, and now that person is no longer here. And it's killing. Well, let's not rush to judgment. If you punch that man in his chest, regardless if it was the first punch or the last punch, led to that man's life being lost, there is no rush to judgment. You murdered that man, all because you wanted to see how far he would go to prove himself to be the material that you call yourselves of. And I'm sorry, that's the reason why hazing is highly frowned upon, and that if it is sought out, those chapters, those brothers or sisters that are involved are disbanded and banned, as they should be. So I'm sorry, I feel no sympathy for those three men, because those three men cost the life of a young man who simply wanted to belong to something bigger than him. Sorry, that's the way I feel. Moving right along, I want to cover this, guys, because again, we covered this story of Robert Morris, I want to say almost 2 years ago. For all those that don't remember, here's a refresher on why we covered it.
For decades, Cindy Clemishire carried anger and shame as she watched the meteoric rise of megachurch pastor Robert Morris.
Thank you, Jesus, for watching him has been harder and harder.
Morris founded Gateway Church in 2000.
If you don't tell the whole truth, you're not being honest.
One of the largest evangelical congregations in the nation, with 9 campuses in North Texas and tens of thousands of devoted worshipers. He became a member of President Donald Trump's Spiritual Advisory Council. But to Cindy, Morris was the traveling evangelist who began to sexually abuse her on Christmas Day, 1982.
He told me, he said, hey, come in my room before you go to bed tonight. I want to talk to you.
He was 21, Cindy was 12.
He started by touching my breast and putting his hands in my pants. He wanted me to stand and close my eyes so he could lift my shirt and pull my pants down and just look at me as a 12-year-old.
Do you remember what he would say to you, what he'd tell you?
Well, the very first time he told me, you can't tell anyone because it will ruin everything.
She says the abuse lasted 4 years until she told her family what was happening. In 2005, after years of struggling, Cindy reached out to Morris and suggested that he pay her restitution.
No one can give me back my teenage years.
It was just last month that for the first time she shared her story publicly online. Morris had been sharing his version for years.
Sexual temptation is an appetite of the flesh, and I developed an appetite before I was saved.
As he rose in influence and power at Gateway, Morris sometimes alluded to past transgressions.
I was very immoral, and I was immoral a lot.
In June, Morris told the Christian Post he had inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady and resigned from Gateway. Gateway told NBC News it is committed to protecting people, first and foremost children, and that it has retained a law firm to conduct an investigation. Gateway says before last month, the current elders did not have all the facts. Former Gateway pastor Stephen LeBlanc says parts of Robert Morris's past were known for years. He just didn't know Cindy's exact age.
It wasn't cloaked at all. It was a common knowledge. And in a way, somehow celebrated that God had disciplined the man and restored him.
Even now, he worries former colleagues aren't being honest about what they knew.
I can't think of any accountability that they've taken other than to plead ignorant.
And you don't buy it?
No.
Other incidents bring the culture of the church into question. Court documents show earlier this year, Gateway Church settled a lawsuit brought in 2020 by the mother of a minor who alleged she was sexually assaulted by another member and that Gateway leaders concealed and discredited evidence. The church did not admit to any liability.
They don't look at a child as someone to protect. Let's use the child in any way we have to protect ourselves.
In letters from 2007 reviewed by NBC News, Robert Morris's attorneys blamed Cindy, claiming she initiated inappropriate behavior. Cindy and her attorneys say that same year, Robert Morris asked her to sign an NDA in exchange for $25,000. She refused. Morris did not respond to multiple interview requests. While Gateway's review is underway, 4 church officials have taken a leave of absence from the Board of Elders.
Do you think even now, Gateway is protecting him?
I do.
Cindy says what she wants now is to help other survivors feel less alone.
Okay. Now, the reason why I brought up that story, y'all, is basically because the guy that was initially there, Robert Morris, they have just now brought up charges of him, right? 5 charges of, whoa, that was a terrible segue. So basically, he got brought up on 5 charges of sexual abuse of a minor, which is now just the indictment had just now came through. So it's amazing to me that, because keep in mind, we were just covering that they were trying to push for him. Because remember Drag Queen Storytime? That a lot of people, okay, that's what I was going to say. 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child, pretty much sexual abuse. But the reason why I bring that up, guys, is because not too long ago, remember when Drag Queen Storytime and how so many parents had an uproar about drag queens? I don't want my child being read to by a drag queen, or drag queens, or they promote sexual promiscuity, or they let it known be, or they try to turn kids drag. All this sexual abuse, all these accusations and weird things that came up. I found it interesting. There's not one story. There's not one story where a drag queen sexually assaulted a minor. There's not one story where a drag queen had lewd acts or behavior with a minor or with a child or a minor. Nothing. But you know what we have had? Anywhere from 9 to 10 stories of people of the cloth, people of the church, ordinary straight white men being brought up on charges of child endangerment, sexual abuse, things of that nature. Religious leaders and straight white men. Not one drag queen story to be found. And yet, folks will sit there and trust, oh, well, we just don't want that. We just want to prevent it from ever happening. No, what you want to do is you want to protect the fact that you don't say what you really want to say. I don't like drag queens. I don't want my children around them. And it's okay. Be honest about it. But here's the thing. You also have to admit that you have a certain phobia. You have a certain xenophobic phobia toward drag queens, toward people that just have a different lifestyle than you. Because again, if these people are willing to have story time with your kids in order to get them to read and be engaged more, especially if you're in a red state where reading levels are near the lowest in all 50 states, you might be a little bit more thankful and start looking at old boy in the church as eyeing your daughter. Just saying. But move right along, guys, because Trump is doing everything these days. Letting us know recession is just a safe word. Letting us know that hey, people that just got let go, maybe they weren't good at their jobs. Even more so, taking time out of his busy schedule to buy a Tesla from co-president, keloid feud, idiot Elon Musk.
This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. Hello, President Trump. Are you looking to buy or lease today?
Well, I'm going to buy, and I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets, and number two, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this, and I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people.
This is bulletproof.
I mean, look, in terms of imagination, I think I have a great imagination. Who else but this guy would design this, and everybody on the road is looking at it? It's amazing, actually. As soon as I saw it, I said, that is the coolest design. It's. Do you agree with that, Brian? I mean,
I do.
It's amazing.
It's very cool. Yeah.
You got to give him credit.
We want the future to look like the future, and it's kind of what kind of truck would Blade Runner drive? That was the design idea.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Elon, are you planning to remain CEO of Tesla while working with President Trump? Is there any thinking on your future at the company? As we're talking about Tesla, I'm wondering where your thinking is with leading the company going forward.
Yeah. I'm CEO of Tesla, and
you should.
Yeah, that's what you get from Dorito. Dorito decided that, hey, I have some free time. Let me give my co-president some airtime. Let me give him some advertisement. Why? Because right now Tesla stock is in the toilet. He's lost nearly $29 billion of his actual value, but still somehow the richest man on earth. At the same time, people who have Teslas, even celebrities, are either turning in their Teslas, lighting them on fire, or selling them and giving to nonprofits. All great things. So what is Trump saying? Not only that, as far as Trump giving him the rub in front of the White House, he's also saying that because of the attacks at Tesla charging stations, that any attacks toward Teslas will now be considered domestic terrorism. I find it kind of funny because we have a great example of domestic terrorism called January 6th, and yet, for the simple fact of the matter, nobody wants to say it, including Trump and his league of white supremacists, don't want to call it domestic terrorism. They call it an act of love. I call it an act of delusional BS. But again, we saw what Trump will do. He's a grifter. Grifters are going to grift. And at the same time, this is not going to help Tesla stock. And at the same time, guys, hurt the man the best way you know how. His bank account. Just saying. Although I think it's just crazy how far this man will go just to grift and fleece his flock. But here's the thing I keep on bringing up, guys. For all those people who are who consider themselves Republican and vote Republican, I just want to ask you guys: are you liking what's going on right now? If you're not rich or don't have a multinational global operation, because House Speaker Mike Johnson, they went to his district and asked those folks how he is doing, and should not be surprised about the answer.
Massive federal spending cuts. We're taking a closer look at how trimming government assistance programs like Medicaid and SNAP could impact the people who rely on them to make ends meet. That includes some voters who live in House Speaker Mike Johnson's district in southwestern Louisiana. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona traveled to a local food bank in the rural town of Vinton, which has been hit hard by hurricanes and rising costs in recent years. She spoke with some of Johnson's constituents, like Angel Lejeune, who visits the food bank every Tuesday to pick up staples for 6 different families.
How important is this for the people that you're picking up for to get this food every week?
Oh, it's very important. They, like I said, they lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their cars, lost everything, basically. And then this is what they depend on to eat. So I'm here every week. A lot of people depend on these things, a lot.
And Melanie Zanona joins us now from Vinton, Louisiana.
So I had to stop it there because, again, that's the district of the Speaker of the House, and folks aren't able to make ends meet. And I keep saying this all the time. This is the thing you should be worried about, because the current bill that's out there right now, Republicans are loving, cuts $880 billion from Medicare, $230 billion from SNAP EBT food assistance. At the same time, increases Trump's tax cuts from 2016 to make them permanent, lowering the corporate tax rate once again. That's already low. And fellas, I mean, people, I can't say this enough. You voted for this. You voted for sending these people that basically are just fulfilling out Project 2025 and making sure that their rich corporate friends get cutbacks. I can't feel sorry, and I said before, I can't feel sorry for those that voted for Trump and still, don't understand the level of danger that they put themselves in. Much like this individual who was a Trump voter, got stopped by ICE. ICE didn't even try to look at this man's identification. Instead, almost deported him.
The man we spoke with is a U.S. citizen. He provided us with documentation of his legal status. He says this experience has shaken his faith in the immigration enforcement efforts of President Donald Trump, for whom he voted, he says. This is what Yenzi Machado managed to record on his phone Wednesday. He says while he was driving to work with two other men, he was stopped by ICE agents on Lamont Drive in Manassas, a short distance from his home. He says he was confused by what was happening, why agents surrounded the pickup truck. He spoke with our sister station Telemundo 44 reporter Rosbelis Quinones, who was the first to report his story.
And they just got out of the car with the guns in the hands and say, turn off the car, give me the keys, open the window. And, everything was really fast.
Machado says the agents said the name of a man they were seeking for a deportation order, someone who had given Machado's home address. He said that was not his name, and he did not know anyone by that name. He offered to show them this, his Real ID compliant Virginia driver's license. It has a star in the upper right corner and requires proof of lawful status.
They didn't ask me for any ID. I was telling the officer if I can give him the ID, but he said that just keep my hands up, not moving. And then after that, he told me to get out of the car, and then he put the handcuffs on me. And then he went to me and said, how did I get into this country? And if I was waiting for court or if I have any case. And I told him I was an American citizen. And he looked at his other partner like, smiling, like saying, can you believe this guy? Because he asked the other guy, do you believe him?
Machado said he was uncuffed and immediately released after showing his driver's license. The two men with him were taken into custody. He does not know why. The incident has caused him to reflect.
Because, like I say, I was a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump last elections, but because I thought it was going to be the things, like be pointless, like just go against criminals, not every illegal Hispanic looking like that they will assume we are illegals.
So, do you think that's what they're doing now?
That's what they're doing now. They're just following Hispanic people looking like.
Immigration lawyers suggest that residents and citizens carry ID with them at all times.
All I can sit there and say is, he said, I was like, he probably voted for Trump. Not freaking surprised. He's like, well, I voted for Trump. I thought he would only go after criminals, and I thought he would only go after, rapists and all them. I didn't think he'd go after me. Well, newsflash, genius. You just found out the hard way. You found out the hard way that ICE has been empowered, along with Homeland Security. They have been empowered to go after everybody, regardless of what you look like or what you think you have. Or you could be like the rest of the group out there. You may think that, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me. I might look like them, but they're not me. Yeah, you found out differently when you got pulled over. So, yeah. I hope it's an eye-opener for him, because a lot of people that voted for Trump, especially those in the Latino community, because a lot of the Latino population did vote for Trump. At the same time, a lot of the white people, again, not surprised by that, voted for Trump. And at the same time, it always amazes me whenever I see stories of, oh, well, I lost my government job because I was one of the Doge cuts. Oh, well, my Medicare may not be there to cover my medication because you're cutting Medicare. Trump, why did you do this to me? I voted for you. That man told you exactly what he was going to do right in front of your freaking face, and you chose to ignore the warning signs. It's hard to feel bad for you, especially that guy that almost got deported, because for every time they sat there and looked at Hispanics and followed him, and the one time you just happen to have a document that saved your ass, there are many others out there who also had the same thing, but might not be given the opportunity. So yeah, it's kind of hard to feel bad for you. Speaking of people that shouldn't be feeling bad for, because, They're just simply there to do Trump's bidding because Trump has learned from the first time he was in office that he needs loyal soldiers. Enter Tulsi Gabbard, the new director of security. I forgot the words I was going to say. The director of national intelligence. There we go. Has decided to pull security clearances for Biden officials and for those who basically went, quote unquote, after Trump. There's nothing more I need to say at this point because the clearances were revoked for the New York AG and the Manhattan DA. For all those who know, the New York AG was the woman that actually did get Trump his criminal felony conviction and is waiting in the wings for them, although it might be a long time in waiting, to ensue that $400+ million penalty against him when he was, quote unquote, broke. And of course, the Manhattan DA that also went after him for mortgage fraud payments. So again, it amazes me that all these clearances have been revoked by the Director of National Intelligence for any other reason except for the fact they spoke out against the Führer Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I sit there and say for a lot of these people that got their positions, they are just placeholders. You're not there to do anything except what Trump tells you to do. And beyond that, anybody else, because he always talk about, the government the FBI was weaponized against me. The Attorney General's office was weaponized against me. And yet, what is he doing now? You have the Director of National Intelligence revoking security clearances because for people that you simply don't like. But yet, you're not saying that's weaponizing government. You're trying to say that's get back, which I find completely interesting and almost laughable. But move right along, guys. We talked about the tariffs and we talked about the fact that Canada and them aren't playing. Well, there is one state right now that might be taking a good hit because of the tariffs and because of Canada's actions, Kentucky. Why? Their most egregious product may be sitting on the shelves for quite a while.
At Michter's Distillery in Louisville, iconic Kentucky bourbon is distilled, aged, bottled, and shipped to more than 80 countries. Their largest foreign market, Canada, where most provinces are now defiantly pulling American liquor from store shelves.
It's definitely caused a hit to our business.
Andrea Wilson is Michter's chief operating officer.
Orders have been canceled. That's the reality of it.
Already orders have been canceled.
Yes, we have $115,000 of product sitting.
That product is just sitting here in Michter's warehouse with Canada-specific labels on these bottles in English and in French. They don't know what to do with this, and if nothing changes, they fear their losses will grow. The timing couldn't be worse for many American whiskey producers. One study showing the industry recently saw a nearly 2% drop in revenue. Amid the slowdown, the CEO of Jack Daniel's parent company called Canada's product pull worse than a tariff because it's literally taking your sales away.
I don't sleep right now.
You don't sleep right now?
I don't sleep.
At Bro Brothers Distillery, Victor Yarborough is in the middle of building a massive new tasting room. That expansion banking on a deal to start selling spirits in Canada. That deal now dead, he's scrambling to find a plan B.
Maybe they'll take 5% of that. Maybe India will take 10% of that.
But he worries any export plan feels like a risk in an industry with profits already going down the drain.
It could be a country we're speaking with right now until all of a sudden you guys are going to get hit with tariffs next, and then that deal falls through. So it's a constant uncertainty.
Maggie Vespa.
So again, bourbon, which I'm a fan of bourbon. I don't really drink it. I don't drink as much as I used to. But the thing about it is, this is what happens when Trump tries to play big ball and tries to looks at a company and looks at a country like Canada and go, okay, we're going to do tariffs. Canadians are like, oh, okay, you can have your products back. We've seen videos of Canadian distilleries literally packing up American liquor and sending it back and being like, yeah, you can have it back, no problem. And so what happens? Companies like, unfortunately, Bro Brothers, which again, I actually love their whiskey. Companies like Jack Daniel's, although I'm more of a near a screen person now, are starting to feel the hits. Distributors are starting to take the hits. Why? Because Canada ain't playing. Canada will gladly send everything back, cut off the lights to our northern states, and look at Trump and go, your move. So yes, who do we put this all on? Yes, Trump's tariffs. Why? because they simply do not work at all. I am just saying, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It simply doesn't work. So our final story of the night, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, we got to talk about measles. Why? Because measles are making a huge comeback, and now the man that's in charge of our health policies in America, I'm just going to play the clip.
Get to that. There are now 200 plus cases in Texas and New Mexico. 2 deaths confirmed. There was one in Texas, now one in New Mexico. Both people were unvaccinated. RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, spoke this week about using vitamin A and vitamin D to treat measles. What's the word and interpretation of this?
The interpretation from conventional doctors is that there is absolutely no evidence that you can either prevent or treat measles with any vitamin, including vitamin A, vitamin D. The public health officials here in Lubbock say that they're really concerned that, parents could sort of overdose their kids on vitamin A because that stays in their little systems for a long time and it can be toxic as it builds up. I will tell you that I've spent last couple of days at a health food store in Seminole, Texas, sort of the epicenter of this outbreak. And I just watched parents coming in and out with visibly sick children, getting vitamin A, getting cod liver oil, which is another thing that RFK Jr. has touted. And doctors are outside of that area are simply sort of wringing their hands, wondering, trying to get them vaccines and other, treatments.
Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy has literally sat there and said, hey guys, so we can't do, the measles outbreak, it can be treated with vitamin A, vitamin B, cod oil. You don't have to get vaccines because he still believes vaccines cause autism. This is what's so scary about this. Parents will listen to him. They'll listen to anti-vaxxers. And I'm sorry, anti-vaxxers are freaking idiots. You're not doctors. You're not research scientists. You're not those that are in the medical field. You're simply looking at things and going, okay, I don't agree with that. There must be something that you guys aren't telling us. Where literally we have nearly a century of medical history that tells us vaccines work. And you got parents out here listening to RFK and say, oh, well, they don't need to get vaccines because we're not really sure about vaccines, what they're putting into our children. Just get some cod oil. And a kid suffers because a parent listens to that idiot. Even more so, RFK, now that he's in and he's confirmed, wants to waste money. Now keep in mind, this is coming from the same party that says they're trying to avoid wasteful spending. Well, here's a mighty example. It needs to be stopped.
Measles outbreaks in at least 12 states as cases jump by a third week over week. Last year, there were only 285 documented cases of measles in the whole United States. This year, it's only March, and there are already 246 cases. Disease killed a 6-year-old in Texas last week, the first death from measles in the U.S. in a decade. And then this week, an infected adult died in New Mexico. Both were unvaccinated. Measles is one of the most contagious diseases in the world. We have a vaccine that is 97% effective in preventing it. But we also have a Secretary of Health and Human Services who says the decision to vaccinate is a personal one, while touting vitamins and steroids and ambulance rides instead.
Right now, we have we're delivering vitamin A. We are providing assistance if people need ambulance rides, and they're getting very, very good results. They report from budesonide, which is a steroid. It's a 30-year-old steroid, and clarithromycin, and also cod liver oil, which has high concentrations of vitamin A and vitamin D.
Dr. Peter Hotez is the co-director of the Center for Vaccine Development at Texas Children's Hospital. He's also dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine and author of The Deadly Rise of Anti-Science, A Scientist's Warning. He spoke at a press conference on the measles outbreak in Texas just this week, and he joins me now. Doctor, I'm trying to be open-minded or at least charitable, but it seems strange to me that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in the midst of a deadly measles outbreak, has not on camera urged people to get vaccinated once, so far as I can tell.
Yeah, and he actually wrote an opinion piece in for the Fox News website where he started talking about the vaccine, but then he didn't talk about its effectiveness and why it's safe. Instead, pivoted to everything else, including some of the things that he mentioned and what you just played. The point is that, Chris, this is a very dangerous measles epidemic here in West Texas. And now moving into New Mexico. The official numbers are close to 200, but the actual numbers, according to people on the ground, suggest there could be much higher. There could be several hundred cases right now and more than 20 hospitalizations, 2 deaths already. And you know what? This is still accelerating, Chris. We still may not have peaked and may still be in the early stages. So it is the only thing we can really do to slow this epidemic right now is to encourage people to get their MMR vaccine, one of the safest, most effective vaccines that we have. And he seems to be talking about everything else but the vaccination. It just makes no sense. Fortunately, we have a very good state health department here in Texas, great local county health departments, and they're doing the hard work to make that happen. But it's the secretary is not helping at this point.
Let me ask you a question, informational question. So Gaines County, which is the place where the I think the outbreak started, as far as we can tell, or at most intense, has one of the highest vaccine opt-out rates in the state. It's at nearly 18% vaccine exemptions. That it puts you at 82%, far from the herd immunity you need at sort of 95. In the midst of an outbreak, if people haven't vaccinated, does it help to go get vaccinated like tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Chris, not only that, even if you've been exposed to measles, if you get vaccinated within 72 hours after exposure, it will have mitigating effects to either prevent you from getting sick or reduce the severity of illness. It's called post-exposure prophylaxis, and that's what we're pushing for, because there is a lot of measles exposure going on, and it's never too late to get vaccinated. So it's all hands on deck. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's it. Vaccinate right now in order to literally save lives, since we've already had 2 deaths.
So again, and the reason why we're talking about this, the reason why I bring this up, guys, is because RFK wants to literally open up a beating horse. He wants to study, again, the link between vaccines and autism. I know what a lot of y'all are going to think and a lot of y'all are going to say. Unfortunately, the case is this has already been debunked multiple freaking times. There is no link between vaccines and autism. Vaccines do not cause autism. Vaccines have actually helped in ensuring that a lot of kids live beyond the age of 2, because diseases like smallpox, diseases like measles, shingles, chickenpox, smallpox, meningitis, the things you actually got vaccines for, will prevent you from actually getting those diseases. RFK, a man that sounds like he needs Ricola, a lozenge, and possibly a replacement voice box therapy, is going to sit there and say, well, there might be a link to this. There's not. That's wasteful spending, and I'm surprised that none of his Republican colleagues will call this out, because RFK is an anti-vaxxer. And I've always said this once, and I'll say this again, I don't think that the vaccinations, and this is going to be me saying this, I always say, well, vaccination is a personal choice. Not if you're in the freaking public. Not if you're free in the freaking public. Why? Because when you send your child to school, guess what? You have to have a shot record, because they will not allow vaccinated children unless you have a specific medical reason inside schools with other children. Why? Because they will expose them to something new. Same reason why when you go to college, guess what? You need a shot record. We're not going to let you inside of our public airspace if you're not vaccinated. So, and again, I've always said, what's wrong with vaccinations? Well, why do so many babies need vaccinations by the time they're 2? Have you not seen diseases lately? And I'm sorry. Every time I hear someone say that, I go, well, are you a doctor? No. Pediatrician? No. Physician's assistant? No. Nurse? No. Then why the fuck are you talking? You have no basis, no experience to talk about what needs to be said. Because it's like the COVID virus. It's like the COVID virus all over. It's like COVID all over again. When COVID hit, oh, how so many people, oh, I'm not going to get the shot. I'm not going to get it. You don't know what the government put in it. It actually could kill you. And how many times have we covered on this show where people who got the COVID virus couldn't breathe on air, on respirators, in hospitals? What's the last thing they always said? I wish I got the vaccine. I wish I got the vaccine. Some of them survived and got the vaccine later. Some of them died. But the answer was always the same. I wish I had gotten the vaccine when I had the chance. So we just saw Texas has the largest opt-out of vaccinations across the U.S. And they also have the biggest number of cases of measles in the U.S. I think there's a correlation. And I also think that Robert F. Kennedy is going to wind up getting people killed. That's just my opinion on that. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because you know how the Frack we got here. We cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make use of faith and humanity. But hey, we're now into Thursday because it's a little after 1 o'clock in the morning. So we're not that far off for Friday, but we will leave you guys out some good vibrations and things of that nature. And I hope to do that with this next story because eggs, they're expensive, highly expensive. And right now that has actually caused people to actually start doing chicken coops. Like this woman here, Nima Finley, who, again, as seen the picture with the gloves and the diamonds and the bling, actually kind of had a come up. And what I mean by that is, guys, is that she had a small chicken coop that she started. And, well, because of the price of eggs and the bird flu and because Trump really screwed the pooch on this, people are looking for eggs the best way to know how. And she literally went from 4 chicken coop to nearly 17 chickens 5 years later, producing about 5,100 eggs, fresh eggs a year. And the price of those eggs, guys, that she's purchasing for, between $9 and $13. And you can't blame her. Egg prices have went up, but let's think about it. 51 eggs a year at $9 or $9 to $13 a dozen. I can see why she has the bling. But again, it is getting to that point, guys, to where we have to start basically growing our own food, growing our own eggs, and hey, might have our own mini farms. Nothing wrong with that. But I just want to give her props because she had to come up on that. But that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and end the podcast, guys. We do thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before I do get out of here, guys. Always shout out to Always Press Record or APR TV on the app. Why? Because How the Frack We Got Here actually shows on there. You can watch it from your television or you can watch it from your smart device. Just watch it because these are the vehicles we talk about, guys, to where our content, our viewership, most importantly, our dollars need to go to. So definitely check out APR TV or Always Press Record. Also, Blur Station. Definitely check out blurstation.com, especially after the BlurCon, which, again, our streaming of that 3-day event did happen. You can go to YouTube's BlurCon for that. But again, this is another vehicle, guys, to where our content, our viewership needs to go to, and not the Tubi. Why? Because Tubi is well worth over $100 million, but Tubi is actually owned by the same guy who owns Fox, whereas Blur Station is owned by us. And speaking of owning, if you do join, definitely hit the join now button. Select the Bird's Eye View Offending membership and select anybody's name there, including myself, Black Spartan. We certainly appreciate that. It is $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. $10.99 a month. You cannot beat that with a stick. After 36 months, you do have the ability to own a piece of Blur Station. It does not get easier to own a piece of a more news conglomerate than easier than that. So definitely check out blurstation.com. Also, run for office. I have talked about this for almost a year plus on this show. If you want to know how Moms for Liberty did it, if you want to know how those guys, how the crazy ones did it, how the red hats did it, this is how they did it, guys. Simply put, if you feel the call to basically serve in office, whether it's locally or nationally, go to runforoffice.org, type in your address there. It will take you through that process. And hopefully, guys, you'll be able to change the climate of what we're in. Because trust me, we will need actors. There's no more hiding your head in the sand. We need all the help we can get. So it's definitely all hands on deck. But definitely check out runforoffice.org. As for myself, guys, you can find me at How the Frack We Got Here on all our socials, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Also, at the same time, guys, the podcast can be found where a podcast can be seen or heard, especially Spotify. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Again, it has its own social as well: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Just look up How the Frack We Got Here. Of course, myself, Black Spartan, Black_Spartan 615. You can definitely follow me on all the socials, guys. At the same time, I keep saying this: we got a long 3 years ahead of us. The midterms are going to be coming up to where we can actually make some waves. But guys, we have got to get together. We have got to form up. These Democrats are going to have to honestly cowboy up and do the right thing and actually be the resistance we need them to be, or move out the way for somebody that will, simply put. But above all else, guys, before I wrap this up, please protect your peace. Do something. Protect your peace at all costs. Check on your people because, again, we need to do more as a society, and that's how we start. Protecting your peace, checking on our strong folks. Do something fun. Get away from the political rat race for a while. Do something fun that makes you smile and happy, and do something for others if you can, because the world needs more of that. The last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, maybe one day electing the first black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching and listening, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.